disco. It ain't no country club either. This is LA. All I wanna do is have a little fun before I die. Sits a man next to me out of nowhere. It's apropos of nothing. He says his name is William. I'm sure he's Bill or Billy or Mac or Buddy. And he's plain ugly to me. And I wonder if he's ever had a day of fun in his whole life. And we are drinking beer at noon on Tuesday. The bar that faces a giant car wash. The good people of the world are washing their cars on their lunch break, posing and scrubbing as best they can in skirts and suits. They drive their shiny Datsuns and Buicks back to the phone company, the record store too. Well, they're nothing like Billy and me, 'cause all I wanna do is have some fun. I got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do is have some fun. I got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do is have some fun until the sun comes up over Santa Monica Boulevard. I like a good beer buzz early in the morning, and Billy likes to peel the labels from his bottles of Bud. He shreds them on the bar, then he lights every match in an oversized pack, letting each one burn down to his thick fingers before blowing and cushing them out. He's watching the bottles of Bud as they spin on the floor, and a happy couple enters the bar.
This has been The Learning Curve. Thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to having you join us on our next episode.
The Academic Learning Center provides free supports to all UM students. Go to the Academic Learning Center website for more information and to access supports.
The UMSU Service Center is your one-stop shop for all the information on campus. If you've got a question about university or UMSU, the UMSU Service Center is the spot to get all the information you seek. We've got the 411 on university-related matters, referral, and directions to office location and more. We're currently open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. Come visit us in room 101 on the main floor of UMSU University Center. Call us at 204-474-8211 or email us at umsu@umsu.ca.
The views expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
I just had the audacity. That's what I always tell people. You just need to have the audacity and the confidence and the trust in yourself to really go after what you want and just say no, I'm doing this. I'm okay, I'm working 60 hours a week just to try and make ends meet. I'm freaking tired. My body hurts. Seems delusional, but should I just quit? I don't know. I feel like I could do this, but I didn't expect to go the route that I went. I was broke as shit. In my head, I was I'm gonna pursue this content creation stuff, and I'm just gonna work a whatever job and kind of have that job fund my dreams until my dreams fund my life, basically.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Two for Eyes podcast, aka the #1 podcast in Winnipeg, where we document the rise and stardom of Winnipeg's talent and personalities. Turns out 84.3% of people listening to this episode are not subscribed. So if you gain any piece of value from this episode, please hit the subscribe button. It gives us, you and me, a reason to continue doing this show and put the city on the map. Today we have Taylor Francisco on the episode to talk about the world of social media and how she grew her social media agency from 0 to 6 figures in just 2 years. She talks about the world of social media, how to get involved from starting out and making vlogs to making a full-blown business and selling courses. If you gain any piece of value from this episode, again, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next week. We were talking just before we started recording that this is your world. We're not worried about you having conversations. you have conversations all the time.
I do.
If you had to describe what you do in like a short little blurb, what would that be? What's
Okay.
your role? What is
Like with my podcast or just in general?
in general? What do you? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a social media coach and I teach my students how to make sales on Instagram. That's really like the shortest way I can describe it.
Nice.
I'm also a content creator and the host of the Tiny Moments podcast.
This is actually the first time we've had another podcast host
Oh, no way.
on the show.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be great. Talk to me about where this world started for you in social media. How did you figure out how to use social media and let alone convert that to become a business, right?
Yeah, so back in the day, I don't know if you guys ever watched YouTubers, but like back in like 2008, I was kind of going through a tough time. Like my parents just split, and my like where I found comfort was watching YouTubers. And it never crossed my mind like, oh, I could do this one day, but I just found so much comfort in watching them. And I remember like slowly over the years, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. They get paid to do this. It's crazy. They get brand deals. I want PR packages. Like I want to film cute videos and get paid for it. Right. But I didn't, there was no concept of like, this is possible for me. And also too, like all the YouTubers I watched were like in LA or just in the States or other places. I'm like, I'm from Winnipeg, like whatever. But then slowly while I was in university, I was kind of like, you know what? I really want to vlog. And like, I just have this really, I guess, kind of loud personality. So I'm like, you know what? I feel like I could do it. So when I was in university, I just started vlogging and I just kind of started researching like, okay, how do I actually make money? And at the time it was like, okay, if you hit 1,000 subscribers, you can monetize, and then it kind of starts that way. So I always thought that was going to kind of be like the path. And then I realized too that there's opportunity on Instagram. So I kind of just started doing that. And I have an English major, like I was in university at the time. I'm like, you know what? I think I could figure out how to pitch to brands. And so really it just kind of started there, but I didn't expect to go the route that I went because I feel like I just had this kind of one track mindset of like, okay, if I'm going to make money from social media, it's going to be me as a content creator. And I just didn't realize that I could do social media management or coaching. And yeah, that's a whole other story. But that's kind of how I got into this world.
And the social media world is not an easy world to be in, especially let alone YouTube vlogging is a whole different world.
Yeah.
Talk to me about those initial vlogs that you made at university. What were those like?
Well, honestly, I was just like, let me just fuck around and find out. Like, let me just be myself and whatever. So we were just filming like lifestyle vlogs. And I just really loved it. And to be honest, everyone always says like, oh, editing's so hard, but I loved it. And actually, I don't know if I've even talked about this on my social media yet, but back in grade 10, we were in like driver's ed and we had this assignment. I don't know if we were all supposed to make videos, but my friend and I, we made a video about like drunk driving. And in the video, she like drives and hits me. She doesn't actually hit me, but whatever, we acted it out. And I just realized then like, oh, I love editing videos. So I feel like now that I'm saying this out loud, I feel like that's where it came from. But the first couple vlogs are really just like for funsies, and I literally used iMovie to edit it, which is like a little ghetto, but whatever. And yeah, I just threw it up and I grew to like almost 1,000 subscribers. I ended up stopping, and I honestly want to relaunch it at some point in 2024, so that might be coming, but yeah, that's kind of how the first couple of videos went. It was just very chill.
Who were your inspirations back then? Because I know when I was, like 12 years old or whatever in grade, I wouldn't be 12 years old in grade 10 anyway. But when I was in grade 10, I was watching like Roman Atwood. I was watching, I don't know who else, like Foodsie Tube, like Logan Paul come up, like all those other,
really?
all those
Such
other
guy YouTubers.
Come on. We're watching, what's her name? Rachel someone? Oh, there's a...
there was a makeup artist.
Who'd you watch? Jenna Marbles.
I do know Jenna Marbles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was watching really girly ones. I don't know if you're going to know, but like It's Judy's Life, Sophia Chang, Whaley, That's Heart. Really girl. You probably weren't watching them, but they were doing like Bath and Body Works hauls and like makeup stuff. Bethany Moda also, who's now dating, I don't remember. Whatever. An Asian guy. He's a dancer.
Did you like kind of treat that as like your study phase, whereas like you know what you were interested in now, right? And so you're gonna try to mimic that and almost use that as like a guide to, because you know what works, right? Like you know what got you interested in watching those videos. How do you replicate that?
For me, I was really just like, okay, I remember like grade 8 Taylor, she was so sad. I was like, she was in her room, she was just connecting. So I wanted to feel like the whoever's watching is actually just hanging out with me, like sitting down, having a coffee, or like directly connecting with me. And those are all the types of messages I got when I first started. Like, I remember this one girl, she's from LA. We're friends now. And it was so crazy to me because she randomly reached out and she's like, hey, I love your vlogs. Like, you remind me of Sophia and Whaley, which are like two of my idols. She would never know that. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, I made it. I did it. But like, that was really cool. And now, like, whenever we go to LA, we always meet up with her. We're still friends now. That was like many years ago, like 7 years ago. So yeah, that's really how I wanted it to feel. It's just like sitting down with a bestie.
And especially at the beginning, those small wins of like acknowledgement. Hey, like, here's 3 likes on a video. Here's 10 likes on a video.
Yeah.
Those mean the world because they proof of concept. It tells you, hey, listen, not the whole world might not be watching just yet, but some people are. What was one of your first wins that you got that got you maybe like hooked that you remember? You mentioned the fan or the friend to know.
Yeah, I would say that was it, to be honest. Just like all of those types of messages. And then I think like my first brand deal where I actually got paid, or like even when I started getting gifted stuff, I was like, holy shit, like, I'm getting PR packages. What the hell? Yeah, so I think that was kind of it where it clicked. And then that's where I really started researching like, okay, how do I make money when I'm not necessarily making it just off of the views? Like, I don't have 1,000 subscribers yet. Like, how else can I do this? So that's kind of where all of that started for me.
That's interesting. A lot of people in grade 10 are not doing brand deals, right? And then
I wasn't in grade 10.
Right.
I was in like first year university, but I was starting to like kind of think about these things in grade 10. So like the video that I made, but I just didn't really put 2 and 2 together at that time.
Yeah. What's the process of getting a brand deal? I'm so curious. Like, you just be like, hey, here's my YouTube channel. Here's how many subscribers I have. Let me pitch to my audience, or how do you pitch the brands?
Yeah, so that was kind of like, I mean, that is still a thing, like the influencer kind of marketing. So, and this is actually what I teach inside my creator course, shameless plug. But how you pitch to brands is basically you just do your research and see like, okay, who do you want to work with, right? And then you can look for smaller brands too. So like if you're like, okay, I love Nike, Nike might not pay attention to you yet, but finding other kind of like athleisure brands, whatever. So just do your research on that. And then you just literally send them an email and say like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. I love your brand because, and then you kind of pitch yourself. And then there's 2 ways you can kind of do it. So one, as an influencer, where you're pitching, okay, like you're going to reach my audience. So that's good for people who have an existing audience. And then now there's also UGC, which is user generated content, where they just are paying you for like good content and they're not trying to reach your audience. You actually don't even have to post it. They're going to use it for paid ads or for organic reach, whatever. So those are kind of the 2 ways. I personally like UGC now because it's just so much easier. Like you don't have to worry about your audience, but if you do have a large audience, and obviously like utilize that too. But yeah.
Well, the difference between maybe like when you first started versus now is that short form aspect.
Yeah.
Right? A bunch of the UGC that you see is short form, correct?
Yeah.
In that realm, whereas when the vlogs, much more long form, longer videos, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, however long, I don't know what the vlogs are, but you see that little shift in going from long form to sit down with me, get to know me fully as a person, to, okay, this is how I can get your attention in the most short period of time with the most amount of dopamine, with the coolest sound effect. What's that transition like?
Well, I think you just got it exactly. This is like what I always explain to people because there is still a place for long form content. Obviously, we're doing this right now. This is long form content. YouTube is long form content. That's really a way to like create a super loyal fan base or customer base is like through those mediums. But you're right, you got to capture the attention. So the short form content is really important for just that. Like, how do you just hook people? I kind of see Instagram and TikTok as like a way to hook people. And then your stories, your longer form content, your podcast, your YouTube, like that's where you can really like warm up your audience if you're selling something. And if you're not, even just like creating that community, right?
Yeah. Did it ever get tiring at any point? Like, you know, being a university student, it's hard. You got so many lives to balance. You got so many hats to wear. Whereas now you're doing this extra thing that you don't necessarily have to do, but you love doing it, right? Did it ever get difficult where you're like, maybe I don't want to do it anymore?
I think it was, 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 I think it was I would say yes. Like, of course, right? Anything that you're doing can get tiring, even if you love it. But I would say what really happened for me was I realized, like, I didn't want to do what I was in university for anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the exhaustion came in, where I'm like, well, number one, like I had someone in my family who was sick, so I was caring for them. I was working like 60 hours a week. My grandma had just passed away. It was like a lot. I was in full-time university, and then I was doing all of this kind of on the side. And that's when I realized, like, oh, I actually like teaching, because that's what I was in school for originally. Like, it's not bringing me joy anymore. I don't enjoy going to practicum. I don't enjoy my classes. But this YouTube thing, this creating content, like, I do enjoy it. So I would say that's like where the exhaustion came in. I would say now, like, and obviously now I'm way beyond just a content creator. I have a business, but I would say now the struggle is kind of like, sometimes for me, I can't turn it off. Because like you guys probably know, if you're creative and you're creating content and you're creating content for your business, that's where I feel like it gets a little sticky, because like, you know, when I was in university or like a server, I could clock in and clock out. Like, once I left, peace out. Like, I'm not thinking about it. But now as a business owner and a creative, sometimes it's like fucking midnight on a Saturday. I'm like, oh my God, I have this idea for a reel. Like, I guess I'll go write it down. And now like I have better boundaries of like, I'm not going to get in the rabbit hole and sit on my laptop for another hour. But in the beginning, especially, I would. And it would be, like I said, a Saturday night. And I'm like, I'm just going to do this thing real quick. And he, like, Glenn, I'm pointing at Glenn in the background. I'm like, he knows that it's not going to be a minute. It's going to be an hour and a half later. It's going to be 1 a.m. I'm going to be cranky after. But yeah, it is what it is. That's what I would say is like the hard part now.
That's the best part, though. Like, when you have an idea, honestly, I love it. Because if you don't write it down, that good of an idea just goes. It goes, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't write it down, I always try to either do it on my notes or I try to write it down on my hands or something. But I remember one time where I think I was almost falling asleep and and I'm like, no, I'm so comfy right now. I have to get up. Yeah, that's the journey that we live for, right? I think it's like, it really makes it worth it at the end of the day.
And it's one of those things, like, if you know, you know. So I know you know, because sometimes you'll be laying in bed, it's like, oh, fuck, I'm so but I'm gonna get up anyway, because it's like, if you have a download, you're having it for a reason. And I know, at least for me, like, I can't force myself to feel creative. I'm not feeling it, but in those moments, I do have a long list in my notes of just like, it's called content ideas. And then it's all just there. And then I have one that's podcast ideas, like email ideas. 100%. Oh my God. But at least in those moments, then it's like, oh, okay, I can just pull anything, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think so many people can relate. Like, content ideas, podcast, we got the same list. They're just loaded up. Because you realize that, yes, you can, in the university, in the working jobs, in the 8 to 5s, you can turn it off. But once you become an entrepreneur, once you become in this creative world, it's 24/7.
Yeah, and we always see this post where it's like, you left your 9 to 5 to work 24/7 for yourself. Like, that's kind of it. I mean, now, like, again, I am really learning. Like, obviously now I'm 2 years into my business, so I have better boundaries, but it was a learning curve. And I think it's going to be a lifelong learning curve, if I'm being honest, because, again, if you're the business owner, that means you're really passionate about it, and it's you. So for me, at least, like, I have had a hard time separating it. Now I'm very much like working on like, okay, my worth is not tied to my productivity. I am not my business. You know, I kind of am, but like, just kind of trying to figure that out.
Well, it's like a baby, right? Like it's like raising a baby, quite literally. You built this thing from nothing to something, or to what it is today, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not living up to that potential, because we're chasing that ideal, the next person of ourselves, and if we're not living up to that potential, it's like, oh shit, like, I don't know, I'm doing something wrong, or you feel guilty about it.
Yeah, you can feel it, because like, we know what our highest versions of ourselves are. So once you know that, it's kind of hard to not always be working towards that or trying to step into that.
What was the conscious decision of going from, okay, I enjoy making content, so now let's make it a business? Was there like a specific moment, something came in, a brand package came in, something that really flipped the switch to be like, okay, now I'm going to do this in the business side?
Yeah, so when I was 22, I was like super depressed. Like, I just knew like, okay, I cannot keep doing this.
Can I ask why?
It was just a lot. Like, I had just been through a lot in my life. I had a really rough childhood, and it was all kind of just coming down on me. I also like had been in 3 car accidents. I had a bunch of dance injuries, and the one thing at the time that was, well, 2 things that were bringing me joy is creating content and dancing, but I had to stop dancing because the chronic pain was just a lot. So there was just a lot going on. And I also knew, just like you said, like, I knew that my highest self was not doing what I was doing. I'm like, okay, I'm working 60 hours a week just to try and make ends meet. I'm freaking tired. My body hurts. Like, I don't even like teaching anymore because honestly, no shade towards children, but kind of shade towards children. It was a lot. Like, it was a lot. So I knew, like, okay, I'm very unhappy, and I like literally had a near death moment, and that's when I kind of woke up. It was literally like that moment of awakening where I'm like, I need to just go after my happiness. I need to just do what brings me joy, because this is not it, and nothing else is more important than your health. You know, like at that point I'm like, yeah, okay, I can make some money, and maybe, you know, I can become a teacher and get a salary and like maybe be comfy and have summers off. But like, I just knew, I'm like, this is not it. And I felt like I was just kind of on a hamster wheel. Like, let me just step off. So I decided that year that I was gonna quit teaching. And that was like in the winter. So I decided, like, okay, I'll go until the end of June, just finish up here. And then Glenn and I moved into our first apartment. I was jobless. I was on EI. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I just knew, like, okay, I'm going to figure it out, because I've been through so much hard shit already. Like, this career stuff, being jobless, like, I can handle that. So we moved into our place, and then I was like, okay, let me just find some minimum wage job, whatever. Because in my head, I was like, I'm going to pursue this content creation stuff, and I'm just going to work a whatever job and kind of have that job fund my dreams until my dreams fund my life, basically. Wow. So obviously things didn't go exactly that way, but I started working at Orange Theory because I was like, well, I like dancing, I like fitness, maybe this will be like fun for me. So I started working there as a sales associate, and it was a big pay cut. Like, I, like, as a teacher, because I was a paid intern at the time, I was getting paid like $25 an hour, and then I would also do like lunch duty, which is like a little bit extra. But at Orange Theory, it was like minimum wage. So I don't know what it was back then, maybe like $13 or $14 an hour. It's like, oh shit, okay, well, this is real. But even with the pay cut, I was so much happier because I wasn't forcing myself to go into a job that I hated. I wasn't like putting on a mask and pretending like I'm fine. And I also knew that now that I didn't have like that energy being drained from me, I'd be able to kind of focus on YouTube and creating content. So that's what I did for like a year. And then I think it was like after a year, and COVID had already hit. So we had already been in like one lockdown. I think it was after that we thought like, oh, things are going to be open again forever. And the owner of Orange Theory at the time, she was like, hey, do you know how to do like social media? And it was weird because prior to this, like, my coworker and I, she had told me that she took a social media manager course. She was kind of talking about it. And in my head, I'm like, I wonder if I could do something like that. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like maybe I could. And then the owner came to me and she's like, you're really good at creating content. Like, it seems like you know what you're doing. I'm like, yeah. She's like, do you know how to do social media management? I said, yeah, of course I do. I had
for this stuff.
I had no idea. But again, I was like, okay, I've practiced like the art of trusting myself and figuring this shit out. Because like I said, we moved in together. I was jobless. I figured that out. So I'm like, you know what? If she's asking for this, I can figure it out. So she's like, okay, can we meet on Monday? And this was on a Friday. She asked me that. And I was like, sure. So I went home that Friday and I was like, okay, I'm going to invest in this social media manager course. I was broke as shit. I had $1,400 in the bank and I spent $1,100 on this course. I was like, okay, I'm going to create like a pitch and I'm going to bring it to her on Monday. And then I brought it to her on Monday and she said yes. And I pitched her to pay $800 a month. So I was like, holy shit, she said yes, this is crazy. So then whatever, we started and we ended up doing this like photo shoot, and I started doing their marketing and everything was going great. And I was like, okay, I feel like I'm good at this. Like, this is really fun. And also I was like, I can make an extra $800 like on top of getting paid minimum wage. But I was like, this makes it so worth it. And then COVID hit again, the second lockdown or the third, I don't even know at this point, one of the lockdowns. And then they basically were like, hey, like, we really love working with you, but like, we're closed. So we can't, like, there's nothing for you to market. And also there's no one paying us, so we can't pay you. So I was like, fuck, like, you know, what now? So again, that happened on a Friday. Over the weekend, I was kind of like just thinking, okay, what can I do now? And I thought, well, if she was willing to pay me that much, who's to say that another business won't also do it? Thinking back now, I'm like, I had some audacity because I literally had like 2 weeks of experience, right? But I was also like, okay, well, I made $800 back, but I'm still short. Like whatever. So let me figure this out. So over that weekend, I created a portfolio, like literally just on Canva. It was so trash, but I created this portfolio, and then I just started cold pitching, like people who were kind of in my network. So I guess sort of warm, but just randomly being like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. Do you need a social media manager? I also announced on my Instagram so officially, like, hey, I'm officially a social media manager with 2 weeks of experience. Just left that part out. And by Monday, I landed my first client. And it was just so crazy. So then that like really snowballed into like, okay, I can do this for myself. So once I realized that, I was doing it during the lockdown, and there was talks of like things opening up again. And I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I want to go back to Orange Theory, because now like I'm doing this, but I wasn't making enough, or like I wasn't making the same amount that I would have working full time at Orange Theory. I was kind of like, ugh, like, this seems delusional, but like, should I just quit? Like, I don't know, like I feel like I could do this. And I knew too. So I came back to work, and it had been like a week. So I'm working like, you know, full time. I'm like, it's taking so much energy, like I can't focus on this. And I know, like, if I start posting on social media, like I could really blow this up, but like I don't have the capacity because I'm working. So I ended up being like, can you reduce me to part-time? And I had no financial backing. Like, we do not come from rich families. Like, there's nothing to lean on here except for my credit card, which I have never done. Like, I never at that point had ever put anything on my card that I couldn't afford. So I was like, I don't want to do that. But I just trusted myself, and I went after it. And then I never went back to Orange Theory because I ended up making way more doing what I'm doing now. So yeah, that's the really long answer to whatever you asked me. I don't remember.
The transition.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Wow, that's takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Right? Especially when you say you don't come from the money, especially I want to break down the one specific decision in that story of I have $1,400 in my bank account. I'm going to spend $1,100 on a course. That specific decision.
Yeah.
Why? And what drove you towards that?
I think for me, it was just like I said, I've been through some shit in my life, and I did not come from money. Like, it was to the point when I was a kid, we were so poor. I didn't really know, but like sometimes the electricity bill would get cut, or like I knew we lived in an apartment and not a house. We took the bus, you know, we didn't have a car, we never went on family trips, that sort of thing. And then in university, there was so many times where like I didn't even have money for food. So I was hungry, trying to write exams, my stomach's growling. Like, my friends would bring me food to school because they knew. Or like if I was really like going through it, I'm like, I just need a matcha from Starbucks. I would have to check my bank account and make sure, you know what I mean? So like coming from all of that and so much just like hardship in my life, this to me felt like kind of lower stakes, because I'm like, I've already been through like I don't want to say the worst, but like the worst out of my life. So I'm like, you know what? If I spend money on this and like it doesn't work out, it's not going to be the hardest thing I've ever had to go through. And I also think, I don't want to say I was like desperate to step into my purpose, but kind of like I had this deep knowing, this like intuitive knowing, like I just know it's right. There's nothing logical that I can say to back this up, but it just feels right. And again, I was like just starting to be on that journey of learning how to trust myself. And at that point too, I realized like every time I had gone against what I was truly feeling or gone against my intuition, that's when things got fucked up. So I was like, you know what? Let me just do this. I got to trust myself. So that was really the decision, to be honest. Obviously, I talked to Glenn about it because I don't want to just, and he was like, I trust you, you know, like, and I had kind of proven myself time and time again through different situations that like, I can do hard things. And we can all do that. Like every single one of us on earth, we've all had terrible experiences. We've all survived 100% of the hard things we've been through. So for me, I was just like, I'm going to survive this too, regardless. And I just kind of knew.
We talk about this a lot, off camera, on camera, but we like to say it's the perspective setting. And it's like, look, you've already been at your lowest, right? And it's now when you compare that to where you are now, that decision probably wasn't as hard. It's a difficult decision, right? Like when you got $400 left in the bank account. And you got rent to pay, you got food to put on the table, right? It's a hard decision, but like Robin said, it takes a lot of courage, right, to invest in yourself and invest in your potential. So that's great. I want to read you the DM that you sent to us. I think this is a perfect time to do so. I asked you for your bio, right?
Yes.
And as soon as I kind of read this, I was like, Robin, we're gonna have this is gonna be a good deep conversation, and I'll just read it to you. Because I honestly feel like sometimes when I type stuff out and I send it to people, it doesn't really hit. But when someone reads it back to you, you're like, holy shit, like that's me. So you go, my name is Taylor Francisco. I am a social media coach, content creator, and a host of the Tiny Moments podcast. I grew my business from 0 to beyond 6 figures in 2 years. And now I help entrepreneurs, creatives, and business owners show up authentically online and make sales on Instagram inside my signature program, Instagram Growth Academy. From a childhood marked by poverty to navigating through mental health challenges, chronic pain, and a career crisis, my story is one of resilience and determination. I emerged from the darkest moments prioritizing self-care, pivoting to entrepreneurship. I took myself from despair to success as I built a thriving business from the scratch in my 20s.
Shit, it does sound way more badass when you read it.
Take me through that. That's you kind of hit up all those topics, but yeah, like growing from nothing to building something, it's a story that you don't get to tell often. And I'm so glad that you're sharing it. But talk me through the moments of the dark time where, maybe you didn't have food on the table. What was that like?
It was dark. It was not fun, I'll tell you that. I think at that time I was just really I was in a victim mindset where I'm like, okay, this is how I grew up. This is what I've seen. This is what's happened to me. Obviously now I believe everything's happened for me. Yeah. But back then I'm like, okay, these are just the cards I was dealt. Too bad, so sad, whatever. This is my life. And I kind of just always thought okay, my grandma struggled. My mom struggled. I'm going to struggle. This is just how it is. This is how I was born, this is just what it's going to be. And so in those moments, it was very much just I felt just kind of hopeless. I'm like, fuck, are these really just the cards I got dealt? Really, it doesn't get any better than this? Yeah. And, it was really hard, especially to taking care of my sick family member, having to take so much on financially, that responsibility. And also to just my parents, they never got along. They had quite an awful relationship, to be honest. And I was really close with my mom. I'm really close with both my parents now. And it's kind of water under the bridge now. But back then I just felt very personally responsible to make sure that my mom was good, or just to make sure she would say things like, you're my rock. And she was not trying to put that on me, but I made it mean that oh, I need to keep my shit together. Yeah. I need to always be that person. And I was kind of just like that in my friend group too. So I just felt I never got to be the victim, or no one ever felt sorry for me. So then I was just kind of craving that. So I made myself a victim, and I just kind of lived in that darkness.
Casey from Elliott Brood. You're listening to CJUM 101.5 FM in Winnipeg, home of the mighty, mighty Weaker Thans.
The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the station.
From New York, this is Democracy Now!
The sad reality of what's happening in Gaza right now actually eclipses, I would argue, any sort of even comparative humanitarian crisis that we've seen.
As Israel's assault on Gaza stretches into its 7th month, we'll be joined by Arwa Damon. She's just returned from a humanitarian trip to Gaza yesterday. An award-winning journalist, now the founder of Inara, a nonprofit providing medical and mental health care to